kick things off today, let's talk about color. It's a big decision that causes many of us a lot of stress, but it can also be an inexpensive way to make a dramatic change inside your home. In this week's Drab Fab, brought to you by Betenbough Homes, Holly Betenbough shows us how she gets the color palette just right.
We're here inside the Betenbough model home in North Odessa. Holly Betenbough is our guest, and she is a designer who makes so many awesome decisions about what we see in these model homes. We're talking today about paint color, and I have to admit, this is my greatest challenge because I never know what kind of paint to choose. Y'all have a philosophy in what works for almost every house.
Yes, and you are not alone. Paint color is very difficult, and so many times you end up painting a room and you see it in the light and it's not exactly what you hoped for. It happens to all of us.
Okay.
So just rest easy on that. Yes, at Betenbough Homes we have a classic beige that we paint all of our walls, and so each homeowner is going to start in their new home with that classic beige color, that neutral color, and then after they live in it for a little while and really kind of see how they want to live in that space, then they can customize aftermarket and paint their rooms any color that they choose.
That's smart, because it does take a while to kind of get your stuff in there and figure out what you're feeling.
Yeah.
So this room is we're in the great room here, and I can look around and see 3 or 4 different paint colors. So the transition between paint is probably something to think about.
It is. It's very important. When you're in a space, you want to think about whether you want that space to be light and airy or whether you want that space to be dramatic and bold, and that can lead some of your color choices. Also, like you said, we're sitting in this room and we can look over here and see several other spaces in several other rooms, and we can look in there and see other ones. So you want to make sure the selections that you choose for color transition well from room to room. And when you're sitting in that one space, the colors that you see in other rooms look really well together and nice together.
Well, and one thing about this room is, I said, people have the impression this great room should be all the same color, but there's a slight difference between this space and the one behind us, and it does make a difference.
Well, we wanted to kind of set the two spaces apart. They are one and they function together as one, but you can use paint to separate your spaces visually and create a different feel.
So you said you kind of found a breaking point. There was a good place to transition colors, right?
Yeah, you want to identify that. Before you start painting, you want to find a good transition point that can be a clean line for the paint to separate and the space to separate.
Okay, now you use these color, what do we call these? Boards? Is that color board?
Yes, this is actually called a paint fan deck, and you can purchase these at your local paint store. And it helps to look at the colors next to each other because each paint has its own base. It'll have a red base or a yellow base or a blue base or a green base, and that paint, once it's on your wall and in your space, that base color is going to show through. It might look neutral to you in this tiny 1-inch space, but once it's in your entire room, the base color is going to come through and it's going to take on those tones.
Okay.
So one of the suggestions that is so helpful, you can actually buy a sample can of paint that's a small can, and usually they're around $5. And it's a great idea to paint this on the wall in the room that you are wanting to choose a color for. Paint just a good space, a swatch of that paint on the wall, and then watch it throughout the day. Look at it in the morning light and throughout the day and in the evening and in the shadows, and make sure that it brings in the tones that you want to have in that space, because light dramatically changes paint.
I love that tip, because that's where I've gone wrong several times. Is all of a sudden it is in the light or the shadow, and it's not exactly what I had hoped. So that's a great tip, to go ahead and paint it on your wall. I love this idea. I think paint choices is a tough thing for most of us. So thank you so much for sharing your tips and ideas. Again, if you have any questions, you can always stop in at the Betenbough model home. They are delightful, and they'll kind of walk you through, and you just come in here and get inspired by what you see too.
So fun.
Holly, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Good.